Sweet. Hey everyone, Akris here. Welcome to the second episode. Today we're going to take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Genesis. If you haven't already done so, please take a look at my first video on Sonic the Hedgehog 1. I'll put a link in the description below. While the plot of the game remains largely, if not entirely, the same, Sonic 2 is a massive leap over the first game. The size of the levels, the number of levels, there were more enemy types, boss fights, and the parallax scrolling added this sense of speed on top of the already faster gameplay. Everything was a major improvement. The soundtrack, God, the soundtrack is so good. I mean, Chemical Plant Zone, just listen to this. Sonic 2 also introduced us to Tails, a two-tailed fox that can fly. This also meant that Sonic could be played cooperatively with a second person. The first person would control Sonic, and the game would focus primarily on him. As long as Tails could keep up, both players could collect rings, jump on enemies, and work together on special stages. But more on those later. One of the biggest additions to the game was Sonic's new ability, the Spin Dash, not previously available in the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic can now crouch down and roll into a ball, charging up speed and unleashing the energy, sending him from 0 to max speed without requiring a running start. This was also a handy attack as well as a means of getting out of certain tricky situations. As I mentioned before, the levels in this game were a vast improvement as well. Emerald Hill Zone takes what Green Hill Zone did in Sonic 1 and cranks up the vibrancy, speed, and fun. It's a great intro to the game with its big open stretches, loops, and corkscrews. Jumping robo-piranhas, coconut-throwing monkeys, and bees that shoot laser orbs at you all provide a gentle transition into the world of Sonic 2. Easily avoidable and for the most part fairly placed throughout the level, all of which that ends with Dr. Ivor Robotnik attacking you in his drillmobile. As per usual, 8 hits to defeat him. After the 7th hit, if Robotnik manages to get from one end of the screen to the other, he will fire his drill at you in a last-ditch effort to try to kill you, or at least take out your rings. Up next is one of the most memorable levels for me, Chemical Plant. The music, the size of the slopes, the tubes that sent you through the plant, this level was so good, even with its most annoying death trap. In Act 2, there's a section of the level that becomes submerged in water. While one would think that running out of breath would be your biggest threat, there's actually a chance that moving blocks would squish Sonic, even if the block only nicked his toe. This is even something that can still happen in Sonic Mania, but I'll cover that game later. Dr. Robotnik is pretty easy to cheese in this level. Jumping at just the right time will allow you to kill him before he even has a chance to attack you. I think the tank fills up with this blue liquid and then a crane device reaches out to attempt to drop it on you. He doesn't have much of a chance though. Aquatic Ruin is probably one of my least favorite levels. Maybe it scarred me as a kid with its lengthy water sections where Sonic moved like molasses and would also have to worry about drowning. There are these air bubbles that return from the first game so you can replenish your oxygen though. Due to the sizing of Sonic's level design, however, you can take alternate routes to avoid the water almost entirely. A bit of annoying enemy placement in this level, a mixture of drill boys and flybots. The kind that come out of nowhere, or where the game knows the player is most likely to try to position himself. While this is one of my least favorite levels, it has one of my favorite bosses. Sonic gets trapped between 2 totem poles, each with 4 sections. Robotnik descends on his pod with a giant hammer attached to it. He goes from side to side, hitting the top of each pole. When a pole is hit, an arrow will shoot out of it, attaching itself to the opposite pole for a brief amount of time. Just enough time for Sonic to use it as a platform. He can then get enough height to hit Robotnik. It's simple, but it's still engaging. You can also get on top of the poles, so if your platforming is good enough, you don't even need the arrows. You can just jump and hit Robotnik and land on the other totem. Then all you have to do is dodge his hammer. And that takes care of that. Casino Night is up next, and this is probably one of the most iconic levels in the game. It has a bumpin' soundtrack, lots of pipes and loops, and a slot machine mechanic that just feels kind of fun. While you have a chance at the jackpot, it's also possible to line up 3 Robotniks, which will take all your rings away. That's no good. This level isn't without its drawback, however. Some of the obstacles can get a little obnoxious, especially if it's your first run. There are multiple types of bumpers throughout the casino that wrestle control away from Sonic. Hell, even one of the enemies has a bumper mechanic. Once you get the hang of the physics though, you can get by with relative ease. There are lots of bounce pads and pinball set pieces, which also provide a nice sense of speed. I would say that the casino has one of my least favorite boss fights, however. Some of it is due to the boss itself, and I almost feel like the rest of it's a bit of a bug. Robotnik hovers above you, dropping bombs, and you can either use pinball flippers to gain height, or a spin dash to jump off the wall, arcing onto him and landing a hit. My biggest frustration when I was a kid, and I even experience this now, was the lack of control you seem to have on Sonic at the base of the arena. It's almost like you're on ice and you can't jump properly, and you glide due to lack of traction. I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments if you've experienced this on the fight yourself. Anyway, it gets to the point where I just tank the damage and get it over with. Great level, but I hate this boss fight. Moving on, we wind up in the Hilltop Zone. This level is more about platforming than speed, a little bit of a change of pace. There are these long-necked Dinobots that act as platforms when you destroy them. Hilltop has you using seesaws to ascend the mountainous slopes and riding gondolas to descend. Safely for the most part. I hit the section where one of the gondolas didn't spawn. At the time of writing the script, I don't know if I have the footage, but I'll throw it in if I do. As you go further down the zone, you will encounter a number of lava pits, and even a section where the mountain gets angry, like it's about to erupt. This presents a weird instance that I never really understood. You reach a point where the lava is rising, and you get the feeling you need to escape, but the lava only rises to a point where its max height won't reach you. But it cuts you off just enough from your exit that in your haste when you're trying to escape, you end up getting hurt and possibly dying. The idea here is that you're supposed to wait for the volcano to settle and the lava to fall. But what the hell, guys? I want to get out of this bitch. Robotnik is very easy to defeat in this level, but with the caveat that you don't have Tails running alongside you. Without him, you'd be able to take on Robotnik in one go. But because Tails also hits Robotnik, sometimes this can cause Sonic to clip through Robotnik and get hurt. A fairly chill stage, and a music track to really drive it home. Oh boy, Mystic Cave. I have some mixed feelings about this level. I love the music, I love the color palette, but everything else can go fuck itself. The Firefly enemies, the level design, this spike pit death trap. Interesting thing about this though, in the mobile port by Christian Whitehead, this spike pit has been removed and will actually take you to an originally unfinished level, Hidden Palace Zone. I haven't played the level, and this review is technically on the Steam port, so I'll reserve all comments on that. But I really appreciate the effort and will likely play that very soon. Getting over these bridges, through these spinning boxes, and past these damn bugs, we hit the stage boss. Robotnik is in a drill machine. Fairly simple fight. Dodge the falling stalactites, avoid the nope, don't like this boss. Get it over with. There you go. 7-second battle. I'm done with this zone. Next. I feel like Oil Ocean is one of those levels that people either love or hate. There's no just kinda like in this one. I think it is one of the coolest tracks in the game, which is great because I can get lost in this level at certain points, or miss a jump that takes me back a ways. So it never gets too bad when you can just listen to something as chill as this. This level has some bullshit though. It's mostly about timing, but there are these green lids that pop off what I can only describe as fire pressure valve things. Anyway, if you go to jump on one of these and your timing is off, you'll jump right into the fire. Sometimes these lids will launch you into a cannon set piece, which can be a little drawn out, but again, the music makes up for the length of these segments. Some other obstacles include these spiky track dealy-doos, oil slick slides, and the Oil Ocean itself. The enemies in this level can be frustrating at times. I really hate these seahorse fuckers. The zone boss is another one that I like to tank damage for and just get it over with as soon as possible. Every once in a while, the issue with Tails will occur where he will hit the boss and you'll clip through it and drown in the oil. This boss uses the Oil Ocean to protect itself. It can also fire lasers and whatever this is at you. Not a fun time in my opinion, but I really do like this level a lot for some reason. Probably the music. Metropolis Zone is next and is the final stage before taking to the sky and even space. This level hands down has the best music track in the whole game. It's so upbeat and it's just a good time. I used to just stand there and listen to it on loop back in the day. There's a lot to this level and is also the only stage in the game to have 3 parts instead of 2. And I can say with 100% certainty that I love everything about this level, save for both the enemies and the boss fight. The spinning gears and nuts and bolts and even the platforming sections are all fine, but seriously, fuck these starfish, fuck these mantises, and fuck these crabs. The starfish explode and shoot these spikes at you and can even hit you from off screen. The mantises usually either appear out of nowhere, or they throw their scythe claws of death at you with crazy accuracy, and these crabs extend their claws at you and also can't be hurt by jumping on them. While this level has one of my least favorite Robotnik fights, it is by no means the worst in the game. That's coming up. At least with this one, you can use Tails to your advantage and have him assist landing hits, or even tanking the damage for you. You hear that, Tails? I finally found a use for you. After Metropolis, we take to the sky. Robotnik has gotten to his wing fortress, which houses his rocket ship or something? Whatever it is. He's trying to get to space and we gotta follow him. Sketchy Zone is kinda weak. It's an auto-scroller, but at least the music is laid back and pleasant. There isn't really much to say here. Mostly, dodge the Robo-Falcons and Laser Turtles for about 2 minutes, and eventually Tails will get you to the wing fortress. The wing fortress kinda starts you off with a bit of a troll. The first few seconds are pretty cinematic, with lasers flying at you and hitting your plane. You expect the level to begin once you land on the fortress. When I was a kid, I expected Sonic to automatically jump off the plane, and I would assume control once planted on the ground, but nope. It's totally possible for Sonic to ride the plane down to his death. Wing Fortress has some of the most annoying platforming in the game, and it's not because of how it's set up, but because it's so finicky on whether or not, say, Sonic will actually grab onto a bar, how far he is able to jump from that bar, will these platforms give you enough time to make the jump before closing on you? This is one level where I don't really care about the music, and that kinda sucks because we're on the second last level, and not only is the music not good, but we are about to face what I consider to be the worst boss in the game. The spiky moving disc platform, side-scrolling laser beam mega blaster from hell. The way these platforms crisscross and force Sonic to shift onto one another, it really just... Make sure you have at least one ring and make sure you can land at least one hit every time the core exposes itself. That's it. It's done. It's time to hop back on the Tornado, Sonic's plane, and follow Robotnik into space in the most unbelievable way possible. When the ship docks, we enter the Death Egg Zone. You hear this music? If you like it, stand back and chill for a bit to take it in, because the Death Egg Zone is a short zone that consists of 2 boss fights, one right after another, and you have no rings. That's right. You have to fight 2 bosses, back to back, and if you take one hit, you die, and you have to fight both bosses again. This ain't your grandma's Sonic 2, no checkpoints in this bad boy, although on Steam you can quick save, but that's besides the point. Back on the Genesis, you only had one shot or you were fucked. First up, we have a robot version of Sonic. Not to be confused with Metal, although this may have been a precursor to his conception. I ain't looking for fact checks, I'm just presuming. Anyway, Robo-Sonic has a few attacks including a dash, spin dash, and sometimes, just to throw you off, a jumping spin dash. Aim for his face when he lands and you'll be fine. I've died in the past for touching his toe. A big thing to note is you can't jump on the spikes, as it is essentially a saw blade, and even when it's not spinning, it can kill you. Defeat Robo-Sonic and chase the Doctor into what is now the final boss, a Mecha Botnik. I had so much trouble with this back in the day, mostly due to my bad brains and being an idiot of 6 years old. Was I 6? I don't know. But also the hitboxes felt a little off. Sometimes you'd hit him in what seemed like the right spot, but due to a single frame, you'd technically be touching his claw or something. Anyway, Robotnik's claws act as a primary defense, and when he attacks, he launches himself up and targets you. Move away from the target when it locks. The idea is to bait it so that he lands facing you. If he lands with his back to you, not only can you not do damage, that I'm aware of anyway, he can shoot a few bombs at you that really test your dodge game before he launches back up for more target practice. When he lands facing you, he opens himself up to a bit of damage. He will then launch his claws at you, but if you stand far enough away, you'll have plenty of time to react and dodge them. Rinse and repeat, and before you know it, you'll cause a chain reaction that destroys the Death Egg and finishes the game. Oh, but not before the final cutscene of Sonic falling back to Earth, surviving zero gravity, zero oxygen, and re-entry, and casually landing on the wings of the tornado. But we ain't done yet. Oh no, we gotta talk about the Chaos Emeralds and the special stages. I think these stages get a lot of flack, and honestly, that shit is warranted. At least when you got Tails with you. Having him along increases the difficulty of these stages by a lot, because you have to compensate for this lag. He follows behind Sonic, but doesn't move one-to-one with him, so if you jump, there's a slight delay in Tails' jump. The idea here is that Sonic and Tails run down a half pipe and need to collect a preset amount of rings by the time they hit the checkpoint, in order to keep going. Do this 3 times per stage, and you get a Chaos Emerald. But if either you or Tails hits a bomb, they lose a good chunk of the rings that they've collected, which can really screw up your chances of obtaining the emerald. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I only managed to collect 6 of the emeralds on my playthrough. Having Tails with me just made the last one a little too tough. If one manages to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, or still has the codes memorized from when they were a kid, they are introduced to yet another new series staple, Super Sonic. After collecting the emeralds, when Sonic collects 50 or more rings, he can jump into the air and transform into Super Sonic, a golden version of himself that is super quick, invincible, but still able to get stuck in spiky pits. Similar to Sonic 1, if the player has all the emeralds at the end of the game, it changes the cutscene slightly to involve Super Sonic, which, given his new powers, makes a little bit more sense that he could survive space, re-entry, and also fly, I guess. Then again, this is a game about a hedgehog who went into space to fight a giant egg-shaped mech, so maybe I'm caring about believability a little too much. Well, that pretty much does it for my look over of Sonic 2. There is a 2-player mode that they integrated into the game, essentially just a modified version of a few zones that act as a race between 2 people, but it's pretty meh. Hey everybody, I want to thank you for watching the video. I got a lot of positive feedback for my Sonic 1 review, and hopefully this will get the same. Sonic 2 is a blast to replay, and even though it has its quirks, I feel like it's aged pretty well. Remember to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe, and stick around if you want to see more. Acres out.